Douluo Continent, Qian Xunji's younger brother, a specialist in curing love-struck brains. Chapter 101. Sob, brother, you're finally here. As soon as they set out to sea, Kair excitedly looked at the various gorgeous and magical scenery at the bottom of the sea, asking big sister Zio Bai from time to time to approach some cute jellyfish to tease them a bit before continuing on their way. Half a day later, Kair's spirit began to flag. The surroundings were always the endless sea, and seeing the same scenery too much stripped away the amazement of first seeing it. Kair lay on Zio Bai's back, her small hands boringly drawing circles on Zio Bai's back. Sister Zio Bai, how long will it take us to run into brother and the others? If the direction is correct, we'll be able to see your brother in another 2 days. Zio Bai comforted her with a sentence, but who would have thought Kair would become somewhat anxious? Big sister Zio Bai, could it be that brother and the others aren't taking this route? Zio Bai was also stunned for a moment, guessing some unreliable result, and said uncertainly, Kair, don't you know the route your brother and the others took to sea? As soon as those words fell, both Kair and Zio Bai fell into silence. Soon, the words of Kair and Zio Bai rang out at the same time. Kair, big sister Zio Bai, I thought you knew where brother and the other ship was. Zio Bai, Kair, I thought you had the route map in your hands and my direction was correct, which is why you didn't say anything. Truly staring at each other in blank dismay, Kair and Zio Bai were both stunned at the same time. Soon, Kair, who was the first to snap back to her senses, had a bit more anxiety in her voice. Sister Zio Bai, what should we do then? Kair looked full of ideas back on Sea God Island, coaxing several holy pillar Douluos into broad smiles, but she was only a 13-year-old child after all. The sea was boundless, and with no way to find her brother, was she going to keep circling around at sea forever? At the mere thought of this outcome, a wave of fear gripped Kair's heart, and she was at a loss for what to do for a moment. Be afraid, Kair. Sister will immediately gather the clansmen and have them help inquire where your brother and the other's ship is. Let's go to a nearby island to rest for a bit first. Amen. Zio Bai was very familiar with the nearby terrain and specially found an uninhabited barren island, putting Kair on it and exhorted, Kair, sister's going back to find the clansmen. You stay here first and sister will be back tonight. Okay, big sister Zio Bai, you must be quick. Realizing that she was the only person here, Kair inexplicably felt a bit scared in her heart, urging Zio Bai to return quickly. Amen, then sister is leaving. With a flick of her tail, Zio Bai's figure vanished at the end of Kair's line of sight in the blink of an eye. Zio Bai made a big circle in the sea and quietly swam to a barren island 100 miles away. A figure very familiar to Kair was standing at the edge of the barren island. Great priest. Bo Saixi gently nodded. You've worked hard, Zio Bai, still having to follow this child in her mischief. Zio Bai smiled and waved her hand. Kair is so cute, I also like playing with her. Rest here and go over after it gets completely dark. Zio Bai acknowledged, watching the great priest's figure recede into the distance, sighing silently for Kair in her heart. Kair, it's not that sister won't help you, but the great priest has spoken and sister has no choice either. As the clan chief of the devil spirit Great White Shark, Zio Bai certainly wouldn't have brought Kair out without even knowing the route. All of this was arranged by the great priest. Standing high in the air, Bo Saixi looked down at Kair below. Seeing that she still had the mood to build a house for herself and dig for seafood, she frowned. Soon she drove more than 10 sea spirit beasts with spirit king cultivation from nearby, charging toward the small island. A column of water suddenly rushed out from under the sea. The wooden house Kair had just built was instantly blasted with a big hole. Lacking a supporting structure, the wooden house collapsed with a crash. Hateful fish, Kair spotted at a glance that big fish spitting water at her. A blue figure emerged behind her and her third spirit ability lit up. A pair of wings appeared behind her, carrying her flying toward the big fish. Today's dinner, it's decided to be you. A streak of holy light fell from Kair's hand, striking right on the fish's head. Feeling the pain, the big fish turned and swam toward deeper waters, its tail slapping the surface of the sea, raising splashes that soaked Kair's clothes. Think about running. I'm going to eat you up today. Watching her clothes ruined and her body covered in a fishy smell, anger welled up from Kair's heart. She plunged headfirst straight into the sea, vowing to skin that hateful fish and eat its meat. Not long after Kair entered the sea, she hurriedly flew out from the bottom of the sea again. Just as she rose into the air, a water cannon struck her back from behind. She let out a cry of pain, not daring to stop. Sensing the danger behind her, her body instinctively sidestepped. A massive crab claw crashed heavily onto the spot she had just occupied, smashing a hollow over 10 meters in diameter out of the seawater. Following closely, more attacks emerged from the seabed. Kair, who had been dodging all along, failed to respond in time, and several purplish-blue bruises suddenly appeared all over her body. Recalling the techniques her mother taught her, Kair used her spirit ability to block the most formidable big crab while constantly using her first and second spirit abilities to buy time for herself, finally running back to the island. Those sea spirit beasts stopped one by one in front of the island, looking around for a long time before disappearing. Kair rebuilt the house, this time staying far away from the seashore. Looking at the black and blue bruises all over her body, the corners of her eyes gradually turned red. Brother, there are spirit beasts bullying me when you're not around. Wiping away her tears, Kaya rummaged through her storage ring to find healing medicine to apply to herself, and then set up warning items around the perimeter. It was completely dark, and her stomach was rumbling with hunger. Worried that those few sea spirit beasts hadn't left yet, Kaya didn't dare go down into the sea to catch fish. She guarded beside the campfire, silently waiting for Big Sister Zio Bai. Just as she was about to fall asleep, she finally heard Big Sister Zio Bai's voice and ran over to greet her with cheers. Zio Bai took out the rice balls she had prepared long ago to feed Kaya. Looking at the injuries on her body, a trace of heartache flashed in her eyes. Sister Zio Bai, have you found the location of brother's ship? Found it. Most in another 2 days you'll be able to see your brother. That's great. Upon learning the good news, Kaya was so happy she jumped straight up, suddenly letting out a cry of pain from her mouth. Kaya, what's wrong? It's nothing, just accidentally bit my tongue a moment ago. Kaya certainly wouldn't let Big Sister Zio Bai know that she, a spirit king, had actually been beaten up by several spirit ancestors and spirit beasts joining forces. Although they were all just superficial flesh wounds, it was embarrassing. Having spent 2 hard days at sea, Kaya boredly looked at the unchanging sky overhead. The novelty of sneaking away at first had long been worn away by the boring life at sea. Kaya, look quickly, that ship ahead, carved on its hull is the angel spirit. Upon hearing this, Kaya nimbly scrambled up and peered at that ship in the distance, indeed seeing the familiar angel spirit on the ship's hull. On the bow deck stood a figure she had missed for a very, very long time. It's brother, Big Sister Zio Bai, let's hurry over. Chapter 102, The Foundation of Spirit Hall. Brother, Kaya missed you so much. Woo. Just a few tens of meters away from the boat, Kaya could no longer suppress the longing in her heart. After apologizing to Sister Zio Bai and leveraging the strength of Zio Bai's back, her entire body shot out like a cannonball, slamming heavily toward Qian Mochen. Qian Mochen had not expected to run into Kaya here. Opening his arms to catch the little girl, he completely neutralized the force of her impact. Kaya felt as if she had landed on a feather cushion, light and airy, and the next second she appeared in her brother's arms, turning her incarnation into a spider as she wrapped her hands and feet around Qian Mochen. Brother, you haven't been here these past few days, and those spirit beasts have all been bullying me. Kaya lingered in Qian Mochen's arms, rambling on about all the hardships she had suffered these past few days. Qian Mochen glanced at his stepmother, who had just sat down inside the cabin, roughly guessing where those spirit beasts came from. How dare they bully my little sister? Next time, brother will take you to beat them back. Okay, in no time Kaya was coaxed into a beaming smile, and only then did she notice dozens of gazes fixed upon her from the side. There were her own nephews and nieces, as well as 7 or 8 unfamiliar youths and maidens. Her 2 sisters-in-law Gu Yuina and Ayin were also standing to the side watching with great interest, their eyes full of teasing amusement. Only then did Kaya notice her posture, and her face flushed instantly. She hurriedly got down from Qian Mochen, ran over generously to greet her sisters-in-law, and went off to play with the younger generation. Inside the cabin, Bo Saixi and Qian Daliu were expressing their mutual longing for each other. At this moment they only had eyes for each other. As for the children, they were probably just an accident along the path of love. Kaya came among the children, and before long she became the king of children amidst the bunch. There was no help for it. Among this group of children there were direct nephews and nieces like Qian Renxue, as well as the grandsons or great-grandsons of Gold Crocodile Douluo and several others. In terms of seniority, Kaya naturally stood a head taller. In terms of strength, currently only Qian Renxue could contend with Kaya. Among the rest, the highest cultivation was only rank 48. Gathering a group of children whose average age was 13 or 14, Kaya stepped onto the ship's railing and looked down at her subordinates. Decided to give ourselves a name. From now on we are people of the Qian Mansion. When we go out, report the name of our Qian Mansion, and no one is allowed to embarrass me. Did you hear clearly? Clearly. Kaya glared at the overlapping voices below, shouting, louder, didn't you eat? We heard it clearly. Good. Kaya withdrew her palm and announced, next I announce that from now on I will hold the position of master of the Qian Mansion. Zuer is the deputy mansion master. Do you have any objections? Kaya asked for the opinions of everyone below very democratically. No, our Qian Mansion also has 10 spots for protectors. In every future internal competition, the 10 strongest will obtain the protector spots. The rest of you will all be internal members of the Qian Mansion. Kaya's few words immediately mobilized the children's enthusiasm. The look everyone cast at those around them carried a hint of battle intent and gunpowder flavor. No one felt that they would be inferior to anyone else. They would definitely claim one of the positions for the 10 protectors. None of Qian Mochen and the others intervened, letting Kaya and Zuer toss about as they pleased. Children, after all, if they were quiet and didn't make a fuss, the adults would worry instead. It was better to let them compete reasonably and vent all their energy. The ship arrived at Sea God Island 8 days later as the host Kaya directly called out to the people behind her. Those of the Qian Mansion, follow me. Today I'm going to let Uncle Seahorse and the others witness the foundation of our Qian Mansion. Yay, charge, I will definitely be the strongest. The children swarmed after Kaer and ran off on the ship. Qian Dailiu watched the group of children leave and looked at the old brothers beside him. For this voyage out to sea, all the old brothers of the Elder Hall had come. When the time came, the ones staying behind would be Golden Crocodile and Qianjun. The others would return together after dropping off the children. Brothers, how about we make a bet? Big brother, how do you want to bet? Let's bet on whose child has the highest talent, excluding Zuer. About wagering a jar of purple Ling wine. Haha, alright, I bet. I'll match that bet too. None of the elders believed that aside from the prodigy Qian Renxue, other children from the Qian family could steadily suppress their own children. The elders dared to compete also because Qian Mochen only brought Qian Renxue among his children. Soon Kaer brought the large procession behind her to Seahorse Douluo's location. Uncle Seahorse, I'm here again. Seeing the figure opposite, Kaer immediately stood on tiptoe and waved. Kaer is here. Are all these people here to participate in the trials of my sacred pillar lineage? That's right, who goes first among you? Kaer turned back to look at everyone. In order not to deal a blow to you all, Zuer and I will go last. Although Kaer had never participated in the test before, she believed that the strength of herself and Zuer was definitely far superior to the others. Zuer, what do you think? I have no objections. Qian Renxue shook her head. Go first. As soon as Kaer's voice fell, several young men and women in the front spoke out simultaneously. Stop arguing, start lining up now and come one by one. Just as a gunpowder-like atmosphere was brewing among the crowd, Kaer shot them a look and they quickly began to line up one by one. First one. Kaer called out loudly, and finding that she didn't recognize this person, she turned back and whispered to Qian Renxue. Zuer, what's this person's name? Little ant, why don't I announce it? Kaer stepped back and Qian Renxue looked at the first person and began to read the name. Chen. Jin Chen stepped forward, relying on Spirit Hall's self-created spirit ability, and after trying twice easily passed through the Middle Sea. Liu Yuan. With Jin Chen setting the example, everyone else succeeded on their first attempt, and their speeds were roughly similar, genuinely shocking Seahorse Douluo. Could it be that Sea God Island had been isolated overseas for too long, and the gap between them and the mainland spirit masters had widened to this extent? Seahorse Douluo had held the Middle Sea trials for the children on the island no less than 100 times. Even for the most powerful islander, the time spent crossing the Middle Sea was double that of these children. Seahorse Douluo did not yet know that everything that happened next would truly make him remember this special day. Later on, after retirement, whenever Seahorse Douluo told stories to the children, he would always repeat the scene of this day. Back then, your grandpa Seahorse tested 2 deities consecutively, along with several dozen titled Douluo. Kaer crossed the Middle Sea effortlessly as the last one and walked up to Seahorse Douluo with a beaming smile to urge him. Grandpa Seahorse, please hurry up and activate the Seahorse Sacred Pillar. Still planning to take my underlings to the next stage. Chapter 103. Lord Sea God, let's give each other some face, shall we? Seahorse Douluo gave a soft assent and led everyone to the central white jade altar, at the top of which floated the crystal for the sea god's trial examinations. Seahorse Douluo bowed respectfully toward the altar, then turned to look at the group of children before him with a trace of solemnity in his gaze. Crossing the sea surrounding sea only represents that you possess the qualification to accept the sea god's trials. Step up one by one, place your palms against the testing crystal and channel your own spirit power into it. The sea gods will naturally judge your talent, heart, nature, bloodline, and future, bestowing a god position trial of the corresponding rank. Each person has only one chance. Once the trial is generated, it cannot be changed. Those who give up midway will be permanently expelled from Sea God Island. Kaer's gaze fell behind her. Follow the previous order. Jin Chen, you go first. Jin Chen gave a hum of agreement and placed his palm on the crystal. A few moments later, a beam of black light soared straight into the sky. Seahorse Douluo gazed at the black light, involuntarily making a sound from his mouth. It's actually a black grade 6 trials. You must know that Seahorse Douluo's own sea god trial back then was only a black grade 5 trials. In other words, Lord Sea God believed that Jin Chen would definitely be able to become a titled Douluo in the future. Kaer glanced at the black grade 6 trials mark on Jin Chen's forehead, her voice indifferent. Barely passing next, the dozen or so children from Spirit Hall went to test one by one. Black lights lit up continuously above the crystal, and occasionally 2 orange pillars of light rose up as well. The astonishment on Seahorse Douluo's face slowly turned into numbness. Has the gap between mainland spirit masters and their sea soul masters grown so large? The children sent by just any random faction actually all possessed the aptitude of a titled Douluo. You go. Qian Renxue gave an acknowledgement. And the moment her spirit power sank into the crystal, the originally deep blue crystal was instantly covered by 10,000 feet of brilliant golden light. Sea God 9 trials. Seahorse Douluo looked at the golden light before him with tongue-tied astonishment, his eyes filled with shock. Hadn't Lord Sea God already chosen High Priest Bo Saixi to become the next successor of the god position? Why would he choose someone else? Kair frowned and quickly sent a voice transmission to her older brother, Qian Mochen. Brother, Zuer has caught the eye of that old Foji sea god, you come quickly. Qian Renxue was completely unaware of the commotion outside. The moment her palm pressed against the deep blue crystal, a wisp of the sea god's divine thought appeared within her spiritual space. The sea god's divine thought transformed into the appearance of his true body, wearing an amiable smile. Seeing that the one who awakened this divine thought of his was actually a little girl of about 10 years old, the attitude of the sea god's divine thought became even gentler. Little girl, I am the sea god and also the protector of this vast ocean. You willing to inherit my god position and continue to protect the believers in the sea? I'm not willing. All right, then we will continue. The sea god's divine thought spoke subconsciously, then froze for a moment before realizing that the little girl in front of him had said she was not willing. The sea god's divine thought was dumbfounded. Could it be that the temptation of a god position was so low nowadays? He looked at Qian Renxue, who didn't even reach his chest, and began to comfort himself. It must be that the child didn't understand yet. Once he finished explaining, she would definitely be willing. Little girl, let me first introduce to you what a god position is. That is the supreme object pursued by countless prodigies. Once you become a god, you can obtain eternal life. Everyone on the Douluo Continent will have to submit to your will. Listening to an uncle's endless nagging, Qian Renxue's expression began to grow somewhat impatient. See, god position belongs to my grandma. Your grandma is Bo Saixi. My daddy said not to let me talk to fools. Qian Renxue rolled her eyes. Everything the sea god's divine thought asked was pure nonsense. Unreconciled, the sea god's divine thought continued to ask a few more times. In the end, Qian Renxue grew impatient, directly closed her eyes, turned around and put her back to him. Fine. He couldn't forcefully manipulate Qian Renxue to complete the 9 trials either. The dazzling golden light in the sky fell down. Just as Seahorse Douluo was about to voice his congratulations, he saw the golden light turn red and land on the center of Qian Renxue's brows. Red grade 8 trials? Seahorse Douluo was so shocked that his voice rose by several octaves. In his decades of life, Seahorse Douluo had never seen Lord Sea God's trial being changeable. Her unreliable older brother hadn't arrived yet. Kair pulled Qian Renxue aside and asked with soft concern, "Why did golden light appear during your test?" "It's because the sea god's divine thought inside the crystal took a fancy to my talent and wanted to gift the sea god position to me." "Didn't do anything to you, did he?" Kair looked at Qian Renxue with a nervous face. "I brought up daddy and he didn't dare to speak anymore." "That's good. Wait for me a moment, we'll go find my mother together later." Kair strode up to the crystal. The moment her palm pressed against it, an equally dazzling golden light began to flash. Moment later, under the jaw-dropping gaze of Seahorse Douluo, the golden light likewise turned into red light and landed in the center of Kair's brows. When Kair saw the sea god's divine thought, without waiting for him to speak, she directly rejected him. "Lord Sea God, Bo Saixi is my mother. I am certainly not going to fight her for the god position." "Lord Sea God, let's give each other some face, shall we?" The sea god watched helplessly as 2 exceptionally good saplings slipped away from his hands. Which of these 2 little girls wasn't better than that brat who took the backdoor arranged by the Asura god? Unreconciled as he was, so what? Right now he was only a divine thought and couldn't do anything at all. The sea god's divine thought could only comfort himself that the meat would eventually rot in the pot. Bo Saixi was his most loyal high priest. Her children and granddaughter were also of the sea god lineage. At least they hadn't been snatched away by other gods. "Uncle Seahorse, we'll go to the sea god steps first, goodbye." Kair waved her hand at Seahorse Douluo and together with Zuer and the remaining younger followers swarmed toward the sea god steps. Passing through the dense jungle, a slender figure stood on the sea god steps. Seeing this figure, Kair's eyes lit up in a flash, and a few more smiles appeared on Qian Renxue's face as well. The 2 girls exchanged a glance, accelerated simultaneously, and plunged headfirst into that person's embrace. "Brother, I called you several times, but you didn't pay attention to me. Daddy, I am so amazing. The sea god even said I have the aptitude to become a god." Qian Mochen caught the 2 little girls and patiently listened to them speak. "I know. With me here, the sea god's divine thought wouldn't dare pull any small tricks. Kair and Zuer are both very amazing. I am waiting for you 2 to catch up to me sooner so that we can go see more scenery together. Hee brother, just watch us. Zuer and I will be able to catch up to your cultivation within 10 years. Little auntie is right." After the 3 of them chatted for a while, the other children gathered around and enthusiastically greeted Qian Mochen. "Second uncle, Lord Mochen." A smile permanently hung on Qian Mochen's face as he patted each of their shoulders one by one. Seeing that their glabella marks were at least black grade 5 trials, he felt extremely satisfied in his heart. It was not in vain that he had continuously distributed all sorts of good things to improve physiques and spirits over these years. The 18 people in front of him were Spirit Hall's new pillars 100 years from now. Chapter 104, Path to Godhood Exploration. Kair, your seniority is the highest here. Leave these children to you to train from now on. Dad, Mom, and the others have other matters to attend to and shouldn't be coming over for the next month. Kair nodded earnestly. Rest assured and leave it to me, brother. I will definitely whip them into shape properly. Already instructed Lanyu about the food, and she'll arrange for someone to deliver it every day. The Sea God Steps trial is no easy hurdle. You all will spend the next year consuming your time here, so arrange your own living quarters. Kair nodded gently, watching Qian Mochen's figure disappear, and immediately clapped her hands to gather everyone together. Chen, take some people to the nearby forest to chop down trees and build a few wooden houses. Zuer, arrange for people to set up a perimeter defense and assign hands to keep watch at night. Kair had a clear train of thought, distributing everyone's tasks entirely and treating the arrangement as a practical combat drill. Without a shred of objection, the crowd immediately took action after receiving their missions. At the summit, Gu Yuina, Qian Dailiu, and Bo Seixi gathered together, while Qian Mochen stood on the platform, recounting to them the scenery beyond level 100. As for why the final trial for a god position inheritor requires a limit Douluo to make a sacrifice, it is because the inheritor's foundation is too weak. A limit Douluo must be sacrificed to cross the threshold of level 100. Between level 99 and level 100 is equivalent to a dead-end road. If one wishes to attain godhood, they must either rely on faith or massive amounts of energy. A few days ago, when undergoing tribulation, I broke through a sliver of the rules of the Douluo Continent. Attaining godhood should be a bit easier now. Hearing this, Bo Seixi closed her eyes to carefully perceive it, opened them a moment later, and nodded gently. If I were to cross this final step right now, there is roughly a 10% hope. Mochen, accumulating the energy of a limit Douluo takes far too much time. Do you have a faster method? Qian Dailiu had painstakingly cultivated to level 99 himself, relying along the way on the bestowal of his old ancestor, the angel god, which had taken a full century. He worried that even if Bo Seixi spent another century, she might not necessarily succeed. The simplest method is to steal faith. The sea god's faith across the vast sea has always been very solid. We can replace the core of his statue with Mom's, and 10 years from now, Mom can attempt to break through the god position. No. As soon as Qian Mochen's proposal was spoken, Bo Seixi shook her head. This was a desecration of Lord Sea God and an act of disloyalty. She would rather spend another 100 years cultivating on her own than steal Lord Sea God's faith. Mom, don't rush. This faith is already useless to the sea god who has already attained godhood, and furthermore he is dying for someone to take over the god position sooner. Why don't we ask the person involved for his opinion? Zixi, I feel Mochen is right. Perhaps the sea god hasn't needed faith as power for a long time. Under the alternating persuasion of Qian Mochen and his father, Bo Seixi slowly nodded. Then let's ask Lord Sea God. Upon hearing Qian Mochen's plan, the sea god divine thought's gaze flickered slightly when Qian Mochen and Gu Yuina's death stare simultaneously landed on him. Lord Sea God, you must consider this carefully. Not afraid to tell you, a few days ago I was undergoing tribulation and my cultivation reached level 100. Nana's injuries have also recovered to divine rank strength. The sea god divine thought's pupils suddenly constricted. Exactly what achieving level 100 through one's own power meant, the sea god was all too clear. Back when he was still a sea soul master, he had also tried to break through the bottleneck on his own, but after decades of effort, that bottleneck still remained completely unmoved. Later on, he still relied on collecting the faith of the sea soul masters and spirit beasts out on the sea, accumulating enough power to break through the level 100 bottleneck and complete ascension to the god realm. Since Qian Mochen already possessed level 100, as long as he didn't leave, even if his own true body descended, it would still be unable to do anything to Qian Mochen. True body, you will just have to suffer a bit. The power of faith no longer has any use to this deity nowadays. Bo Seixi, as my inheritor, just take it. Anyway, he was only a divine thought. What could his true body do to him even if it was unhappy? Once the sea god divine thought's thoughts cleared up, he immediately came up with many ideas. Bo Seixi, call Xiao Bai over. I will personally persuade her to accept this matter. Knowing that the sea god had summoned her, Xiao Bai rushed over immediately. Seeing her master from whom she had been parted for a century with her own eyes, Xiao Bai's eyes welled up with tears. The sea god divine thought spoke gently to Xiao Bai for quite a while. Under his persuasion line of "this is all for Sea God Island," Xiao Bai frowned for a long time before finally nodding. This was all Lord Sea God's arrangement. As Lord Sea God's mount, Xiao Bai would unconditionally support any of Lord Sea God's commands. With Xiao Bai's cooperation, in less than a month, within a radius of 1,000 miles around Sea God Island, the interiors of all Sea God statues had transformed into statues resembling Bo Seixi. The moment the first cluster of faith condensed, Qian Mochen discovered a loophole that wasn't quite a loophole in attaining godhood through faith. The stronger the person or spirit beast, the more power of faith they could provide. Since the stronger the strength, the greater the faith output, Qian Mochen cast his gaze towards Qian Dailiu standing to the side. Dad, you wouldn't want to watch your wife remain stuck at her current realm forever, would you? The child of luck appointed by God King Usra has already been born now. If we don't hurry up, the future sea god position will change hands. Qian Dailiu. Why, you brat, make yourself clear. Who is that child of luck, and what the hell is God King Asura? Qian Mochen briefly recounted the story of how God King Tang would inherit 2 god positions by himself in the future, and by the way turned his mother into a sacrifice to ascend to level 100. Qian Dailiu's long hair fluttered in the air, and the killing intent on his body completely froze the surrounding space. He would not allow anyone to harm his Zixi. What is the name of that child of luck? This old man will go slaughter him with my sword right now. Qian Mochen hurriedly held back Qian Dailiu, who was about to go berserk. Dad, that child of luck has been under our surveillance all along. If you were to slaughter him and Asura god casually resurrects him and shoves him into some remote corner, wouldn't that just be making trouble? Can gods casually interfere in the lower realm? Qian Dailiu's eyes were full of astonishment. This was completely different from the words passed down by their old ancestor. Wasn't it agreed that gods who completed ascension were not allowed to interfere in the affairs of the lower realm anymore, even that angel god in the early years had only condensed a clone through faith to display divine miracles? Qian Mochen wore an expression of "you're narrow-minded and making a fuss over nothing." Dad, there are also worldly conventions of human relationships in the god realm. After all, Asura god is one of the 5 great heads of the god realm. The other 4 have to give him some face, no matter what. Wait until I go to the god realm in the future and slaughter that damn Asura god, and then we'll properly welcome that child of luck. Alright, we'll listen to you. Qian Dailiu forcibly suppressed the killing intent in his heart, opening his eyes only after a long while. Do you have some kind of idea? Chapter 105. The new sea god Qian Mochen hummed in acknowledgement. Dad, do you think if there are enough titled Douluos providing the power of faith to Mom, her final step will go very quickly? Of course. Qian Dailiu had also looked at Qian Mochen's research results over the past few days. The power of faith brought to Bo Saixi by the several holy pillar Douluos of Sea God Island every day was comparable to the sum of everyone else on the island. In the Elder Hall, Uncle Golden Crocodile and the others don't have much to do right now anyway. Why don't we have them also put their faith in our new sea god? Anyway, it doesn't cost money and believing in it won't hurt. Qian Dailiu felt his hands starting to itch. Brat, you haven't forgotten that everyone who can enter the Elder Hall is a believer of the angel god, right? Qian Mochen wore a look as if he were making a fuss over nothing. Dad, no one stipulates that faith must be exclusive, right? In his past life on Blue Star, the folks of China specialized in the attitude that it didn't matter what god it was. Believing in them casually was fine. That was called pan-faith. Qian Dailiu suddenly smiled. His spirit ring flashed and vanished behind him, and his figure instantly appeared behind Qian Mochen. One hand grabbed him by the collar, while with his other hand he produced an iron board out of nowhere and slapped it onto Qian Mochen's butt with a smack. Qian Mochen didn't feel a thing. Instead, the board in Qian Dailiu's hand snapped cleanly into 2 halves right down the middle. Hee, Dad, did you think I wouldn't notice your little tricks? The me of today is no longer the me of yesterday. Good, very good. Qian Dailiu dropped the half-board and walked away. In the evening, Qian Mochen was leisurely lying on a reclining chair when the door was suddenly pushed open. Gu Yuina and Ayin walked in wearing cool clothing. Husband Tilda. Ayin leaned close to Qian Mochen's ear and softly called out. Qian Mochen's body shuddered and he subconsciously raised his head. After seeing the clothes on Ayin and Gu Yuina, for some reason he inexplicably felt a bad premonition in his heart. Nana, Ayin, why you guys? What are you doing? Husband, today Nana's sister and I heard Dad say that he wants to take care of children. Think that Zuer and the others don't have any younger brothers or sisters, which is too lonely. Qian Mochen's right eyelid twitched wildly and he quickly explained, this must be something Dad said to you on purpose. He even wanted to teach me a lesson today. It can't be Nana's sister overheard it. Husband, the mission is heavy and time is tight. Let's start quickly. Qian Mochen was forced to get up from the reclining chair, looking at himself being pulled toward the bed with a face full of despair as 2 tears streamed down the corners of his eyes. The next day Qian Mochen emerged from the room, rubbed his aching waist and let out a long sigh. The battle last night had been far too intense, directly reducing his waist to a battle-damaged version. Husband, hearing the voice from behind, Qian Mochen gave a start and quickly replied, I'm going into seclusion, I'll come out in a few days. If he were dragged back into fight for another day and night, he would really die. In the secret room, Qian Mochen opened his palm and a ball of power of faith emerged. He channeled his spirit power to begin analyzing this ball of power of faith. The power of faith contained a trace of life energy and spiritual energy. These 2 energies combined together according to an unknown law to form the power of faith. Qian Mochen had also figured out why titled Douluos provided more power of faith. Being the exact same 1,000th of energy, a titled Douluo's portion would naturally have a greater proportion than that of an ordinary person or spirit beast. What about him and Nana? Could they artificially manufacture the power of faith? Qian Mochen began to break down the power of faith in his hand, dismantling it into the absolute tiniest wisps. Seeing the composition of the power of faith clearly, Qian Mochen began to mobilize his own life energy and spiritual energy, attempting to combine them. The sound of popping rang out continuously, and the energy in Qian Mochen's hand constantly exploded. Once the energy within his body was completely depleted, he immediately swallowed a medicinal pill to continue. Not knowing how much time had passed, a faint wisp of power of faith floated in the palm of Qian Mochen's hand. Ha ha ha, he laughed up to the sky, his exhausted eyes shining terrifyingly bright. It finally succeeded. He had used 10 portions of energy and finally managed to manufacture 1 portion of power of faith. Although the consumption and harvest were disproportionate, this was a good start. Qian Mochen continued his intensive research. After dozens more days and nights passed, he fused 3 portions of life energy with spiritual energy, and the repulsion between them quickly vanished. A moment later, a brand new power of faith appeared in Qian Mochen's palm. Now it's finally a success? Qian Mochen broke out of seclusion and imparted the method to Gu Yuina, Yin, and Qian Dailiu. In the span of a month, the power of faith they manufactured converged into a pool 10 meters in diameter. Bo Saixi poured all the power of faith she had accumulated over the past year into the pool. Sensing a sliver of an opportunity to break through her realm, she immediately announced her seclusion. At noon a month later, a huge sea god trident pattern suddenly appeared in the sky above Sea God Temple. Immediately after, the holy pillars guarded respectively by Sea Horse Douluo and the others successively emitted thousands of feet of light, as if celebrating something. The 7 Sea Horse Douluos, associating it with the high priest who was in seclusion, left their guarded holy pillars one after another. Zio Bai, who was guarding outside of Sea God Island, noticed the anomaly. Having experienced the sea god ascending to divinity back then, she already had the answer. She immediately swam ashore and hurried towards Sea God Temple. On Sea God Island, rain suddenly began to fall. As the raindrops fell, the vegetation on the ground began to grow rapidly. Even Zio Bai and the holy pillar Douluos felt some hidden injuries within their bodies begin to heal under the rainwater creek. The closed doors of Sea God Temple opened and Bo Saixi walked out from inside. There was not a trace of coercion on her body. She seemed just like an ordinary person. Yet Bo Saixi, ordinary as she was, gave the holy pillar Douluos several times more pressure than before. The several holy pillar Douluos exchanged glances, a trace of joy welling up in the depths of their eyes. The oldest sea dragon Douluo looked at Bo Saixi. High Priest H, have you succeeded? Bo Saixi nodded gently and waved her arm backward. The sea god trident enshrined in front of the sea god statue let out a soft hum, turning into a stream of light that fell into Bo Saixi's hand. The sea god trident, heavy as a mountain, was like an obedient child in Bo Saixi's hands, moving as smoothly as her own arm. She glanced at the trident and both ends of it began to melt, quickly transforming into a brand new scepter. Respectfully welcoming Lord Sea God, all the holy pillar Douluos bowed to Bo Saixi in unison. The loud voice resounded across the entire Sea God Island. Hearing the sound, the residents on the island and the devil spirit great white shark swimming along the shore all knelt and saluted toward the highest Sea God Temple, their loud high-pitched cheers lingering for a long time. Respectfully welcoming Lord Sea God, Bo Saixi spoke with Zio Bai and the others. After sending them off, her gaze fell upon Qian Mochen. Mochen, shall we go outside and spar? Having just ascended to the god position, the aura of twilight in Bo Saixi's eyes had dissipated, replaced by youthful vitality. Qian Mochen had also just broken through level 100, making it just right for them to have a good match and adapt to the skyrocketing power within their bodies. Chapter 106. Return Trip. Target Newton City. Qian Mochen naturally had no objections. The holy seraphim spirit wings behind him unfolded, enveloping the 4 of them. With a gentle flap like a streak of light, he instantly appeared on a barren island 1,000 meters away from Sea God Island. Mom, this barren island has no life whatsoever. Why don't we spar right here? Bo Saixi nodded slightly. Qian Dailiu, Gu Yuina, and Yin retreated outside the barren island, standing suspended in the air. Gu Yuina needed to suppress the aftershocks of Qian Mochen and Bo Saixi's sparring match, while Qian Dailiu and Yin were specially brought over by Qian Mochen precisely to let them know the true gap between the divine rank and limit Douluo. Qian Mochen summoned his spirit, which transformed into a long sword. The moment he gripped the hilt, the aura on his body began to rise rapidly, and specks of flames started falling from the sky. 100 meters away, Bo Saixi also released an astonishing aura. Looking at the encroaching domain, she gripped the staff in her hand and gently tapped it. With a clang, the sea behind her whipped up waves 100 meters high, and the waves and flames constantly vied for space. In the end, this 1,000-ping barren island was split in half by their domains. The left side was pouring with torrential rain, while the right side burned with raging flames. Qian Mochen raised the long sword in his hand and countless flames surged toward it. He slashed out with a sword from bottom to top. The moment the sword light flew out, its size surged explosively, and a 100-meter-long flame sword kai cut across the sky. Wherever it passed, pitch-black spatial rifts were burned into space. The spirit behind Bo Saixi had somehow transformed into her own appearance. The avatar of the martial soul reached out with a beckoning motion, and the staff in her hand let out a soft hum, actively falling into the spirit's hands and rapidly expanding. Bo Saixi waved the staff in her hand, and millions of tons of seawater surged over in an instant. The moment it collided with the sword light, the millions of tons of seawater exploded one after another, and violent winds rose from the center of the explosion. Hundreds of caddies of shattered stones turned into fine powder under this shockwave, rapidly spreading outward. The spirit rings behind the spectator Qian Dailiu flickered, his spirit wings spread open, and a rain of light fell all over the sky. A move sufficient to severely injure a spirit Douluo could not block the shockwave by even a fraction. Qian Dailiu's expression sank as his body swelled by hundreds of meters. 6 pairs of golden wings of light unfolded, and his avatar of the martial soul wielded a giant angelic sacred sword, slashing straight at the shockwave with a single sword strike. The angelic sacred sword and the shockwave stalemated for dozens of seconds before finally blocking the aftershock. Qian Dailiu retracted his avatar of the martial soul, spread the wings behind him, and flew toward Gu Yuina and the others' position. He had only blocked a weakened aftershock, yet after using his avatar of the martial soul, he was still forced back by hundreds of meters. That final half-step gap was like an abyss. The barren island was now completely shrouded in water mist. One could only see the flashing of firelight, the lingering water vapor, and the earth beginning to tremble. Half an hour later, the commotion inside vanished and the water mist dispersed. Qian Dailiu looked at the barren island beneath the two's feet, his pupils sharply contracting. The barren island had already vanished, leaving only a 1,000-meter-deep crater in its place, into which tens of millions of tons of seawater poured every moment. Zixi, how is the scenery at the divine rank? Qian Dailiu noticed the sweat on Bo Saixi's face, took out a handkerchief to wipe it for her and didn't forget to spare a second to glare at his rebellious son. You brat, this is your mom. Sparring isn't a real fight, look at how tired you made your old mom. Bo Saixi tugged at Qian Dailiu's sleeve, took a step aside and blocked Qian Dailiu's line of sight. Mochen was just keeping me company for a spar, now my control over my power has returned a lot. Then did you? Saixi shook her head. I lost, I went all out, but Mochen wasn't serious at all. Qian Dailiu stared into Bo Saixi's eyes, confirming she wasn't joking, and shifted his gaze toward Qian Mochen's side. Watching Qian Mochen acting spoiled in front of his own wife, Qian Dailiu shifted his gaze away with a speechless expression. This brat who knows who he learned it from, a grown man still acting spoiled here. Mochen, what level are you at now? Rank 105. Didn't you just break through a year ago? How could you improve so much? A hint of shock appeared in Qian Dailiu's eyes. Even Gu Yuina couldn't help but cast a sidelong glance upon hearing this. I don't know either, I just came out of seclusion and found that my strength had improved on its own. This humble brag statement made Qian Dailiu clench his fists. The thought that he couldn't even break Qian Mochen's defense made Qian Dailiu's mood even worse. Nana, what about you? How much of your strength has recovered? Now it's the same as yours, also rank 105. The speed was still a bit too slow. The enemies Qian Mochen anticipated included the 5 God Kings, and the strength of each of these God Kings was no lower than rank 150 right now. He could only act arrogant on the Douluo Continent by relying on the fact that the God Kings could not descend to the lower realm with their true bodies. He still had to rely on his own golden finger. Qian Mochen returned to the Sea God Temple. After spending half a month with Kair Zuer and the others, Qian Mochen brought Gu Yuina and Ah Yin to board a ship and return to the mainland. Zuer and the others all stayed behind on Sea God Island to continue their trials. Mochen. Gu Yuina burrowed into Qian Mochen's arms, leaning against his chest, quietly listening to Mochen's heartbeat, and spoke only after a long while. Let's not go fight the God realm, okay? Nana, what's wrong with you? Qian Mochen cupped Gu Yuina's face, his gaze scanning her face inch by inch. Deep within her pupils he captured a trace of vulnerability, an emotion that had nothing to do with Gu Yuina was now appearing in her eyes. Qian Mochen's thoughts began to diverge one by one in his heart. Could it be that the God Kings of the God realm noticed the changes on the Douluo Continent, so a God King descended with a clone and warned Nana? Gu Yuina gently shook her head. I was previously blinded by the hatred of the spirit beasts. Now among the spirit beasts I am the only one who has just entered the divine rank. Even the most powerful of the 10 vicious beasts, Dishan and the Snow Empress, can only rival limit Douluo in strength. Divine rank can casually dispatch a few gods to wipe out everything outside, not to mention that there are still 5 God Kings in existence. Mochen used both hands to forcefully press Gu Yuina into his arms. He heard it, Nana was despairing because of the strength of the God Realm and didn't want him to follow her and die at the hands of the God Realm. Nana, I can increase my strength by 5 levels in a year. Are you willing to give me 10 years? 10 years from now, I will take you to horizontally sweep across the entire God Realm, take revenge for the spirit beasts and restore the right of spirit beasts to become gods. Gu Yuina looked into Qian Mochen's eyes, attempting to find evidence that he was comforting her but ultimately found nothing. Really? When have I ever told a lie? Gu Yuina fell silent for a few seconds, then suddenly grabbed Qian Mochen's clothes and ripped with both hands, violently tearing his jacket into 2 pieces. Nana, Mochen, love me. An intense battle of life and death began. This time Qian Mochen was determined to prove his dignity as a man, letting Gu Yuina know that once a war started, it wasn't up to her to say when it ended. Chapter 107. Good brother, long time no see. At the port of vast sea city, Bibi Dong arrived at the shore early today, gazing out at the boundless sea in the distance. Soon she saw a ship flying the flag of Spirit Hall 1,000 meters away, slowly approaching the port. Unable to contain her yearning any longer, she rose into the air, flying toward the ship like an arrow. Soon, Bibi Dong locked onto someone who had just stepped out onto the deck, heavily stamping her foot in the air, a thrust from behind boosting her speed once more. With a bang, just as Machen stepped out onto the deck and saw who was rushing at him, he released his defense and was knocked backward entirely. Machen lay on the ground, shielding Bibi Dong in his arms. Feeling the wetness on his chest, he gently patted Bibi Dong's back with his arm. After a long while, Bibi Dong sheepishly crawled up from the ground. Aside from the corners of her eyes still being somewhat red, one couldn't tell at all that she had just been crying. Been gone for so long. Sorry, it was my fault. Machen did not explain, decisively admitting his mistake as he pulled Bibi Dong back into his arms, comforting her softly for a good while. 2 coughs suddenly came from beside them. Bibi Dong hurriedly darted out of Machen's arms, looking over at Gu Yuina, who had been watching for who knows how long, a trace of shyness flashing across her face. Machen, we're about to dock. Where are we heading next? We're going to a place called Newdon City. I have a good brother whom I haven't seen in many years and I miss him a bit. When Machen spoke of his good brother, the corners of his mouth carried a smile. Dear Yu Xiaogeng, as a good brother when he got married back then, he even specially arranged for someone to send Yu Xiaogeng an invitation. It was one thing that Yu Xiaogeng didn't come, but over the years, whenever there was a joyous occasion at his home, he would notify Yu Xiaogeng. Unfortunately, Yu Xiaogeng seemed to feel that their friendship was made of plastic, let alone gifts. There wasn't even a single word in response. Yu Xiaogeng, oh Yu Xiaogeng, who told you to be my good brother? This time, even if I have to take a detour, I must go visit you. Among the 3 of them, only Bibi Dong roughly guessed the identity of the good brother in Machen's mouth, and she subconsciously blurted out her guess. Person you want to see, could it be Yu Xiaogeng? Machen blinked and nodded in admission. The expression on Bibi Dong's face became eccentric. Back then, she had witnessed all sorts of operations Machen pulled on his good brother Yu Xiaogeng. It could be said that the person Yu Xiaogeng hated most in his life was definitely Machen, who constantly called him a good brother at every turn. Sensing Bibi Dong's subtle expressions, Gu Yuina and Yin hurriedly inquired about the grievances and entanglements between Machen and his good brother Yu Xiaogeng. Inside the carriage, Machen was driven out to drive the horses. Starting from when Yu Xiaogeng coaxed her into betraying Spirit Hall, Bibi Dong recounted everything all the way up to when they went to attend Yu Xiaogeng's wedding. As for the matter regarding Qian Xunji back then, she had long since taken it lightly. What was important now was their family. After hearing the whole process, Gu Yuina and Yin felt a bit of sympathy for Machen's enemy for the first time. Machen, you didn't bring any gifts this time going to Newdon City, did you? Nana, you certainly reminded me. Machen patted his head and enthusiastically spoke of some information he had learned not long ago. Donger, do you still remember Sun? And Bibi Dong muttered the name and quickly remembered her, or rather him, that man who was male by gender and female physiologically, having shared a brief marriage with Yu Xiaogeng for several days. Anne has deep, unrequited affection for my good brother and was still inquiring about Yu Xiaogeng's information half a year ago. Furthermore, Machen deliberately paused, a mysterious smile appearing on his face, and has been single all this time and there isn't a single person by her side, whether male or female. Is she still waiting for Yu Xiaogeng? Machen nodded approvingly. If it weren't for your reminder, Donger, I almost forgot. This time, since my good brother and I haven't seen each other in many years, I must bring a gift. Machen immediately wrote a letter and sent someone to deliver it to Spirit City. As Yu Xiaogeng's good brother, although he himself already had a wife, children, and a warm Kang, his good brother had nobody by his side who truly understood him after all these years. With someone like Sun and sticking unwaveringly to Yu Xiaogeng with such difficulty, as Yu Xiaogeng's good brother, Machen naturally had to help fulfill a good match. Bibi Dong stared at Machen for a long time before spitting out a sentence. Having a good brother like you is truly a blessing Yu Xiaoging cultivated over several lifetimes. You flatter me, you flatter me. As if completely failing to hear the sarcasm in Bibi Dong's words, Machen cupped his fists and said modestly, "Son and still needed some time over there." So Machen led the three women sightseeing along the way, leisurely heading toward Nudun City. That evening, just as Machen and the others stepped into Nudun City, a carriage followed closely behind. Machen glanced at the coachman and gave him a look. The group quickly stopped to rest at a restaurant. And greets Lord Machen, still dressed as a frail woman. Sun En knelt down the moment she entered the door. Machen was stunned for a moment, looking at Sun En. The Adam's apple on her throat seemed to have vanished, and if he hadn't misheard, her voice just now sounded like that of a young girl. "Son, and your voice?" Sun En raised her head apprehensively, looking at Machen with a face full of gratitude. "And received your highness's grace back then and joined Spirit Hall. Over the years in Merit Hall, Sun En was fortunate enough to exchange for a medicinal pill. After eating it, some features on my body began to eliminate, and my complexion has also gotten better and better." Thinking of her experiences over those past years, a trace of tears welled up in Sun En's eyes, and her pitiful appearance made Machen's eyelids twitch incessantly. He constantly chanted silently in his heart that the beauty in front of him was a man. Go back and rest. Tomorrow I will arrange an opportunity for you and my good brother to meet again. Moment Machen opened his eyes, right in front of him was the tearful, about-to-cry face of an otherworldly beauty. Fearing he wouldn't be able to hold back if he looked a couple more times, he hurriedly waved his hand to dismiss Sun En. Sun En's beauty was no less than it had been back then. Moreover, because of her age, she now possessed an extra hint of charm. Machen felt that if he were to stay alone with Sun En for too long, he might not necessarily be able to hold out. He wondered how his good brother's perseverance was holding up nowadays. Inside the elementary academy of Nudun City, Yu Xiaoging lay on a cold bed, gazing at the moonlight above his head with a decadent look in his eyes, his body exuding a mixed stench of sweat and alcohol. For so many years, staying in this small city, he had never been able to find a genius who met his expectations. Could it be that he, Yu Xiaoging, was destined to remain so incompetent forever? Past events continuously surfaced in Yu Xiaoging's mind. In his memories, the face of a hateful fellow occupied the vast majority of it. There were also some fragmented memories of a few happy nights he spent in Spirit City. In his dream, Yu Xiaoging dreamed that an otherworldly beautiful young girl took the initiative to seek him out, scolding him for not knowing how to tidy himself up, and proactively helping him clean his home. The affection between him and the young woman rapidly heated up, quickly leading to their wedding night. Chapter 108. Do you like this gift, Yu Xiaoging? Yu Xiaoging gazed at the bride in front of him, his eyes burning with desire. Just as he couldn't help but lower his head to kiss her, a rough voice exploded in Yu Xiaoging's ear. "Husband, be gentler with me." Yu Xiaoging retreated abruptly, his head hitting a pillar, and he woke up instantly from the pain. His upper body instantly shot up, and he looked around, finding that his room was still in a messy state, causing him to let out a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, everything just now was just a dream. Remembering the dream just now, Yu Xiaoging's teeth chattered and his fingers clenched until they turned pale. He actually dreamed of that fellow Sun En. What a humiliation, truly a humiliation. Yu Xiaoging got up, changed into a pair of clean trousers and lay back down. Clearly it was the middle of the night, yet he couldn't find any sleep at all. The next day, Yu Xiaoging walked out of the room with two large dark circles under his eyes, hastily finished his meal and walked back while a flattering voice sounded behind him. Grandmaster, please wait, there are friends of yours visiting outside." Yu Xiaoging frowned, stopped and looked at the guard who had jogged all the way over. "Did my friends mention their names?" The guard shook his head, then added, "Grandmaster, they came straight to the academy and even called out your name. Moreover, judging by the aura of those few people, they are not ordinary folks." There was one thing the guard didn't say. Those distinguished guests looked even more majestic than the Lord of Nudun City. "Then invite them over." Guard nodded, glanced at Yu Xiaoging again and hesitated as if he had something to say. "If you have anything else to say, spit it out all at once." "Grandmaster, would you like to tidy up your clothes first?" Yu Xiaoging's clothes were covered in dirt and stains, and occasionally a sour, foul odor drifted over. Not to mention those distinguished guests, even the guard himself couldn't bear to look at him. "HMPH, what do you know?" Yu Xiaoging let out a cold snort and lowered his head to look at himself. Seeming to feel that this would damage his image as a master of theory, he flicked his sleeve and turned back into his room. "Guide the guests to my side." Yu Xiaoging reluctantly rummaged through his chest and found a wearable piece of clothing at the bottom. This was something he had once worn back in Spirit City. Glancing at the other clothes, none of them had been washed, so only this one could barely pass muster to meet people. After washing up and changing into clean clothes, Yu Xiaoging heard the guard's voice introducing them outside the house. The guests had arrived. The middle-aged grandmaster in the mirror still retained his undeniable handsomeness as he prepared to go out to meet his friends. "Come this way, watch your step." The The guard enthusiastically led Qian Mochen and the others toward Grandmaster's house. A woman with an exquisitely beautiful face couldn't help asking, "Is Xiao, Grandmaster usually alone on ordinary days?" Out of the corner of his eye, the guard glanced at the woman's face, a flash of astonishment crossing his eyes. "Yes, Grandmaster likes peace and quiet on ordinary days, and people don't often come around here. Recent years, Grandmaster hasn't liked going out much. Usually it's our dean who actively comes to look for Grandmaster. That room over there is Grandmaster's dwelling. Distinguished guests, please make yourselves at home. I will take my leave first." Guard tactfully took his leave. Just as the words left his mouth, Qian Mochen called him back and tossed him a few gold coins. "Thank you, young man. Just a small token of appreciation. Take it back and buy some wine." "Thank you, my lord." The guard carefully took the coins, wild joy plastered across his face. As expected of distinguished guests, a casual tip was enough to cover half a year of his wages. With a creak, the door opened. Sun instantly caught sight of the person she had been yearning for day and night, calling out, "Xiaogeng." She rushed forward quickly, plunging headfirst into Yu Xiaogeng's arms. Without clearly seeing who it was, Yu Xiaogeng was bumped back half a step. Catching a glimpse of the woman's stunning profile out of the corner of his eye, the anger on his face quickly vanished as he gently patted the woman's back. "Young lady, may I ask what your name is? I don't seem to have seen you before." Yu Xiaogeng didn't know if he had said the wrong thing just then, as the sobbing sound of the woman in his arms grew louder and louder. "Yu Xiaogeng, you actually forgot her. To think that this young lady suffered all sorts of hardships for your sake and only managed to transform herself into a woman with great difficulty. It's you." Hearing this voice that he would never forget, Yu Xiaogeng's eyes glared fiercely at the man who spoke. "Qian Mochen, it's me, Yu Xiaogeng. After so many years apart, you actually still hold prejudices against me. It really breaks my heart. Think I went out of my way to escort your wife here for you?" Qian Mochen wore a wounded expression, acting as if Yu Xiaogeng failed to appreciate good intentions. "When did I ever have a wife? Yu Xiaogeng, did you forget the girl you saved back then when playing the hero, saving the damsel in distress?" That unbearable memory from back then rushed over him once again. The moment Yu Xiaogeng thought of how the delicate, pretty girl in his arms was actually a man, he instinctively pushed Sun down to the ground. Sun fell to the ground with an ouch, tears welling up in her eyes as her voice deepened. "Xiaogeng, I am already a girl now, why can't you still accept me?" Yu Xiaogeng turned his back, anger suppressed in his voice. Of Yu Scram, gazing at such a ruthless Yu Xiaogeng, Sun's tears fell like broken pearls. She stood up from the ground, covered her face with her sleeves, and quickly ran out. "Yu Xiaogeng, you shouldn't have done this." In Qian Mochen's mind, the notification sound of Yu Xiaogeng sending him 100,000 emotion points rang out. Knowing that he couldn't continue teasing Yu Xiaogeng today, he left behind a sentence and quickly departed. "Good brother, I hope you calm down a bit. I'll come visit you again in a few days." Yu Xiaogeng remained silent as his sharp nails dug fiercely into his flesh. Drop by drop of blood began to fall, yet he seemed unable to feel a single bit of pain. If he didn't know that as a level 29 spirit grandmaster, he couldn't do anything against any single person in Qian Mochen's entourage, he wouldn't be standing here enduring humiliation once again. At this moment, Yu Xiaogeng bitterly hated his own feeble strength. The sky gradually darkened. Yu Xiaogeng numbly walked into the room, rummaged out a jar of liquor, mechanically opened the wine seal, hugged the wine jar, and took a fierce gulp. Cough, cough, cough. The pungent liquor made Yu Xiaogeng cough uncontrollably, yet he did not put down the wine jar in his hand. After coughing, he continued to hug the wine jar and drink. Every sip he took reminded him of the humiliating scenes Qian Mochen had brought him back then. Destroying his image in front of Bibi Dong, humiliating him with a man, and later the wedding between him and Liu Erlong, which was also specially notified to the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect by Qian Mochen. Case by case, matter by matter, the liquor in Yu Xiaogeng's mouth unknowingly took on a hint of bitterness. Soon, a full 2 caddies of strong liquor were poured into Yu Xiaogeng's stomach. The intoxication began to rush to his head, and Yu Xiaogeng's body went limp, sliding from the table down to the floor. He did not get up, lying directly on the icy floor, attempting to use the cold floor tiles to extinguish the raging flames burning in his heart. Sleepiness struck. With his very last shred of consciousness, Yu Xiaogeng seemed to see his room door being pushed open by someone, a figure in a long dress standing before him, quietly looking at him for a long time. Chapter 109. This is preposterous. Hiss. Yu Xiaogeng opened his eyes and subconsciously covered his head. Yesterday's hangover still hadn't improved by now. He opened his eyes, looked at the familiar yet unfamiliar room, and froze for a moment. This was indeed the wooden cabin he had lived in for nearly 10 years, but everything around it made Yu Xiaogeng feel unfamiliar. The duvet cover beneath him was brand new, and the pile of dirty clothes he had previously piled at the end of the bed had completely disappeared. The mess on the table had been completely tidied up by someone, and even the floor was spotless. The window was open, and sunlight streamed in, hitting Yu Xiaoging's face and making him unsure whether he was awake or dreaming now. Yu Xiaoging slowly got down from the bed, sat at the table, and saw that someone had left a piece of paper on the table with a slender handwriting writing a sentence on it. Teapot is keeping the hangover soup warm, remember to drink it when you wake up. Thin paper carried a trace of familiar fragrance. Yu Xiaoging grabbed the teapot and poured a cup. The hangover soup in the pot still carried warmth. With just a touch, Yu Xiaoging knew that the person who made the hangover soup should have left less than an hour ago. Without needing to guess, Yu Xiaoging knew who had done all this. The moment he thought this was done by Sun In, his hand clenched tightly, and just as he was about to throw away the teapot, remembering that this was his favorite set of tea sets, the throwing action stopped midair. Yu Xiaoging stood up, just preparing to pour out all the hangover soup in the teapot, but when he walked to the window he stopped again. His gaze fell on the steaming hangover soup, his eyes shifting with many complex emotions, not knowing what he was thinking. After a good while he picked up the teapot and poured it all directly into his mouth. After drinking it, the hangover headache indeed improved. "Don't come again, I will never like men in this life." Yu Xiaoging didn't know if Sun En was outside, shouted a few times towards the outside of the window and slammed the window shut with a smack. In the bamboo forest not far outside the house, Sun En was hiding in the bamboo forest. Hearing Xiaoging's words, her lips pressed together and tears involuntarily pooled up. "And my good brother's words clearly mean the opposite of what he feels. Can't you even hear that?" Qian Mochen's words made Sun En freeze for a moment. She carefully savored Xiaoging's words and quickly understood Lord Mochen's meaning. If Yu Xiaoging were truly ruthless towards her, how could he have drunk the hangover soup she brewed? This man was clearly too proud to save face and was still being stubborn with his words. Sun En burst into tears of joy, bowed to Qian Mochen, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you for your guidance, Lord Mochen," she understood. Starting today she would silently clean the room for Xiaoging and take good care of him. As long as she persisted, Xiaoging would definitely accept her. Now with the help of Lord Qian Mochen, she had completely and thoroughly become a woman, and in the future she could even conceive a child belonging to both of them with Xiaoging. Seeing the fighting spirit reignite in Sun En's eyes, Qian Mochen nodded approvingly and incidentally painted a rosy picture for Sun En. "When the day of your grand wedding arrives, I will personally attend." Sun En knelt on the ground with tears of gratitude, already too choked up for words. From this day on, every night after Yu Xiaoging fell asleep, Sun En would quietly appear, clean the room, and prepare breakfast for Yu Xiaoging before leaving. When Yu Xiaoging woke up and saw the breakfast, he angrily threw the rice bowl out together, shouting towards outside the house, "I told you to get lost, didn't you hear it? I won't eat anything," you, and couldn't help running out from the bamboo forest to Yu Xiaoging's face. "Xiaoging, I am already a woman now. I will only love you alone in this lifetime, get lost." Just as Yu Xiaoging spat out a single word, he saw the long dress on Sun En slip off, and an incomparably beautiful body appeared unreservedly before him. He widened his eyes and froze in place, and a few seconds later his face felt as if it were burning up as he quickly turned his back, his tone no longer as ruthless as before. "What are you doing? Hurry. Hurry up and put your clothes on." Sun En didn't make a sound, walking step by step toward Yu Xiaoging and hugged him tightly. The power belonging to the spirit ancestor locked down Yu Xiaoging's resistance. She rested her head on Yu Xiaoging's shoulder and spoke passionately. "Xiaoging, I said it before, I will be yours alone for the rest of my life. I know you just care about my past, I won't feel life chi. I will wait for the day you have a change of heart." After saying this, Sun En hugged Yu Xiaoging hard. The next second a gust of wind appeared in the room, rolling up the skirt on the ground. She dressed herself properly again, turned back to take a deep look at her beloved when she reached the door, and turned away. A good while after Sun En left, Yu Xiaoging sat down again. He picked up a book casually, and the pages in front of him unconsciously turned into Sun En's appearance. And it was even in a completely bare look. He knew what she said was true. She actually really became a woman and even had such a beautiful body. Yu Xiaoging found that he hadn't even turned a single page of the book all day, his mind filled with Sun En's shadow. He looked at the sky and simply lay directly on the bed, tossing and turning for a long time before finally falling asleep. The next day the room was filled with a familiar fragrance. On the table were warm porridge and a few refreshing side dishes. Yu Xiaoging hesitated for a moment, thinking of his meager money this month, and didn't throw out the remaining bowls and chopsticks. Wasting food was too shameful. In the spirit of thrift, Yu Xiaoging sat down, picked up the porridge, and started eating. A mouthful of porridge entered his mouth and a trace of surprise appeared on his face. The taste of this porridge was truly not bad. In the bamboo forest, Sun En peeped at this scene, the corners of her mouth curling up to reveal a stunningly breathtaking smile. Xiaoging was finally starting to accept her. Every day after that, Yu Xiaoging seemed to have grown accustomed to waking up every day to find warm breakfast on the table. 10 days later, when he woke up, he found a note pressed on the table which wrote, I just learned how to make steamed buns recently. Do you want to try some tomorrow? Yu Xiaoging stared at the note for a long time. A few characters on it had somewhat messy strokes. He could almost see a woman pondering for a long time in her heart, writing down her feelings with full anxiety. He was silent for a long time, his arms slowly reaching for the writing brush beside him. He picked up the brush, dipped it in ink, and 10 minutes later he quickly wrote a single character on the paper and strode out of the house. Almost forgot he still had a class to teach today. He had to go quickly. Thinking of his morning class, Yu Xiaoging walked at a fast pace, his back looking somewhat disheveled. Not long after he left, Sun En walked out of the bamboo forest. Seeing the untouched breakfast on the table, the light in her eyes instantly dimmed. Xiaoging, could it be that you? Just as a sad sound escaped Sun En's mouth, her gaze fell on the note next to it. Below the words she left, a scrawled character key was writ. Sun En burst into tears of joy, laughing until tears came out. At night, when Yu Xiaoging was fast asleep, a scorching body suddenly lifted the quilt and burrowed in. Yu Xiaoging opened his eyes, and just as he was about to speak, his mouth was directly blocked. Chapter 110. This marriage I agreed it. Due to the host's actions, Yu Xiaoging has completely let go of his heart demon, earning a reward of 500,000 emotion points. After waking up, Qian Mochen found that his good brother had directly sent him a huge gift package of 500,000. With so many emotion points, it looked like finding Sun En was the right choice. Qian Mochen took the three women to the city to purchase items related to the wedding. Gu Yuina was somewhat puzzled. Mochen, what are you buying these for? Of course they're prepared for my good brother. Qian Mochen wore a matter-of-fact expression. Yu Xiaoging has been rather tight on money these past few years. As his good brother, of course I have to help him prepare these. You mean Sun En has captured Yu Xiaoging? Thinking of that possibility, Bibi Dong blurted it out subconsciously. After speaking, not only she but even Gu Yuina and Yin began to look at each other in dismay, not knowing whether to offer blessings or silent condolences. When Yu Xiaoging gets married, I must send him a generous gift. Should we notify sect master Yu Yuanjin? Qian Mochen was talking to himself when Bibi Dong couldn't bear to listen anymore and went up to cover his mouth. Act like a human being, Qian Mochen. If Yu Xiaoging gets messed with by you like this again, he's going to go completely crazy. Fine. Qian Mochen dismissively gave up the thought in his heart with some regret. He had originally planned to send out mass invitations, having the Yu clan as well as Flender, Liu Erlong and others all come over. Yu Xiaoging woke up from his dream with a faint fragrance lingering in his arms. Recalling his experience last night, a smile unconsciously appeared at the corners of his mouth, and his dejected expression relaxed as well. Sun En really hadn't lied to him. She had truly become a real woman. Raising his head to look outside the window, the sky was just barely growing bright. Yu Xiaoging got out of bed to search for Sun En's figure, and soon he saw Sun En cooking porridge in the kitchen. Yu Xiaoging did not conceal his footsteps, and soon Sun En heard the movement behind her. Looking back, it was her Xiaoging. Sun En's face turned somewhat pale and she hurriedly said, Xiaoging, you woke up so early, then I'll leave first. An eye on the fire for the porridge in the pot later, just boil it for another 10 minutes. After hastily giving a few instructions, Sun En hurried towards the back door. As soon as she left, a steady voice sounded behind her. Stop right in. Stopped in her tracks. A few seconds later, a hand reached out from behind and grabbed her wrist. Stay and have breakfast together before leaving. K. Sun En glanced at Yu Xiaoging's hand holding her arm and then at his face, the corners of her mouth curling up into a happy smile. Her feelings for Xiaoging had finally made Xiaoging change his mind. After the porridge was cooked, Sun En sat at the table and tentatively picked up a piece of food for Xiaoging with her chopsticks. Just with this simple action, Sun En's palms were covered in sweat. Yu Xiaoging's chopsticks paused for a moment before he picked up his bowl and ate all the food. Feeling the undeniable gaze beside him, Yu Xiaoging did not turn his head and stiffly spoke, "Let's eat." Sun En softly gave an acknowledgement, picked up her porridge and took a sip. The ordinary plain porridge blossomed with ultimate deliciousness in her mouth. It was the taste of happiness. As days passed by, Sun En tested Yu Xiaoging's bottom line little by little. Starting from the 5th day, a few women's garments appeared in Yu Xiaoging's wardrobe. On the 10th day, he began accompanying Sun En out to purchase food. The sorrow on his face disappeared, replaced by a faint happiness at the corners of his mouth. When they went out today, Yu Xiaoging and Sun En saw a small courtyard decorated with red wedding banners amidst the sounds of wind and string instruments. Upon inquiring, they learned that someone was getting married today. Because of their outstanding aura, Yu Xiaoging and Sun En were mistaken for guests of the bride and groom, and were invited to take their seats. Sitting in the guest seating, Yu Xiaoging watched the entire wedding ceremony before shifting his gaze to Sun En's face beside him. A brilliant light flickered in Sun En's eyes. It was a look of envy. Yu Xiaoging took Sun En's hand and gently squeezed it. Sun En looked over somewhat strangely. Let's get married. En's eyes suddenly widened, her palm tightly grasping Yu Xiaoging's hand in return, and her voice even trembled slightly. Xiaoging, what did you just say? I said let's get married. Okay. Sun En immediately covered her mouth to suppress her weeping, happy teardrops sliding down the corners of her eyes. That's wonderful. She had waited so many years and finally waited for these words. When they went back that evening, Sun An's mouth didn't stop talking about what things needed to be prepared. Yu Xiaoging listened silently, and after a short while the smile on his face became somewhat stiff. Holding a wedding would cost at least 100 gold coins, and his spending over the years had always been extravagant, leaving him with only a little pocket change. When the news of Sun An and Yu Xiaoging holding a wedding came, the smile on Qian Mochen's face grew a bit more. This marriage, I agree to it. Tell Sun An that I've prepared everything for the wedding. Have her take my good brother to go check it out, and change anything they aren't satisfied with. After learning the news, Sun An directly pulled Yu Xiaoging to a residential estate in the city. Xiaoging, this is our future bridal chamber. Let's take a look together. Yu Xiaoging gave a soft acknowledgement. He was well aware that Sun An had been with him all these days and had no time to prepare, so whose handiwork this brand new estate wasn't hard to guess. Walking into the estate, Yu Xiaoging scanned through it place by place. The person who arranged the courtyard was very attentive. Every single decoration used very good materials, and even the ceremony and banquet on the wedding day had been prepared. After touring the entire estate, Yu Xiaoging's hatred toward Qian Mochen wasn't as deep as before, but he still felt unhappy with Qian Mochen in his heart. Together with Sun An, he proposed some adjustments to certain details, and the next day someone came over to quickly carry out the renovations. On the auspicious day 5 days later, Yu Xiaoging wore groom attire and rode a white horse to welcome his bride. On this day, someone set up 300 tables of banquets outside the estate. Anyone who spoke a word of blessing to the newlywed couple could eat. Even the Lord of Newdun City and the person in charge of the Spirit Hall branch came to attend the wedding. After the meal, there were performances by wind and string instrument troops and acrobatics teams, pushing the atmosphere to its peak instantly. Looking at his lively wedding, Yu Xiaoging walked over to Qian Mochen's table to offer a toast, squeezing out a stiff smile. Thank you. We're all brothers, no need to be polite. Qian Mochen said these words with utmost sincerity. If not for Yu Xiaoging, how could he have had so many emotion points coming in? These past few days, Yu Xiaoging had contributed nearly 700,000 emotion points to him. 200,000 of those were used by him to exchange for a medicinal pill that changed Sun An's body. It was also because Yu Xiaoging was simply too enthusiastic that Qian Mochen was willing to fulfill Sun An's wish. Good brother, why don't you move to Spirit City later? The resources in Spirit City are more than a little bit better than here. Just as Yu Xiaoging was about to refuse, Qian Mochen's next sentence made him fall completely silent. You wouldn't want your child to fall behind others right after birth, would you?